Is buying a foreclosure a good idea? Hi, I'm Phil Pustiowski, real estate investor, mentor, and coach. You can learn more about me at freedommentor.com. And in this video, I'm going to talk to you about if buying a foreclosure is a good idea for you. And it really breaks down into two places. Are you looking to buy the property to move in, what I would call a retail buyer? Are you a retail buyer or are you an investor? That is going to make the difference here. For a retail buyer, I am going to say yes. It is a good idea. Because what you can do is you can buy maybe a bigger home or a better home in a slightly better area than you ordinarily could, because you're going to get a little more bang for your buck. Maybe there's some TLC, some work that needs to be done to the property, but you're going to get a good property probably, or better than you would normally, because it is a foreclosure, and there typically is a slight discount with foreclosures. But if you're an investor, I'm going to say the exact opposite. I'm going to say, no, it's a bad idea. Look, I am an investor and a real estate coach and mentor, so this may cut across the grain. This may be a little bit different than you would ordinarily hear, but in this video, I'm going to tell you why. But first, let's talk about retail buyers. If you're going to buy a foreclosure right now, there are 4 steps you need to take. Number 1, get a real estate agent. Why? Because the bank is actually going to pay their bill. The bank is going to pay the 3% to the agent representing you. And the reason why is because that is something they have budgeted into the sale of their property. But if you think you're going to save that 3% by not hiring an agent and those savings are going to get passed on to you, I got news for you. The bank isn't going to do that. Why? I don't know. Bottom line is, that real estate agent you hire is basically free to you, because ordinarily you wouldn't be able to capture that extra 3% anyways. So go ahead, hire a real estate agent, get them on your team, preferably a good one. All right, number 2, don't expect to get a super low price on a foreclosure. I got news for you. Banks are greedy. They don't always give you a great deal. So if you are looking to buy a property that's a foreclosure, just be aware that if you do make a lowball offer, it probably won't get accepted. You're welcome to try, but don't expect to get a steal. Just expect to get a fair price on a good deal. Okay, number 3, when you're buying a property to move in and it's a foreclosure, get a home inspection. I know it may cost you an extra $300, but you got to do it. You need to know what's behind the curtain. And with foreclosures, there can be all sorts of problems. But number 4, when you do get this inspection, be aware that if there are problems, the bank doesn't care. Meaning, if you find a significant issue and you bring it up to the bank, which is the seller, and you say, look, hey, there are some problems with this property, the plumbing's got some issues, I still want to buy the property, but we're going to need to renegotiate an additional $5,000 discount from what the original price we have on the contract. The bank's going to laugh at you. They're going to say, no, hit the road, we don't care. This is what you agreed to pay, that's what you're paying. And so what makes that significant is, don't get your heart set on any one foreclosure that you're making an offer on. You want to be open-minded, because it could be that a big problem occurs, you paid for the home inspection, and now you need to walk away from the deal and go find a new one. So don't set your heart on any one foreclosure you make an offer on, because you may be disappointed. And we're going to get into that little subject here in just a moment when it comes to when you're buying a home as an investor. But keep that in mind, that banks are stingy. They don't care what's wrong with the property. They're not going to lower their price in any way, shape, or form. And so let's move on to if you're a real estate investor. So if you're a real estate investor, I think it's a bad idea to buy a foreclosure. Why? Well, I got 3 main reasons. Number 1, you've already heard about it, banks are stingy. You know, oftentimes, if a problem comes up when you do the inspection, they're not going to reduce the price. And furthermore, they really don't give you a great deal these days. A lot of these banks are stingy. And if you've tried to make an offer on a foreclosure, you know what I'm talking about. So they're very stingy, and that makes it difficult to negotiate. And you know what? They're sometimes downright bullies. Let me explain. I had a situation where I was making an offer on a foreclosure, and once we got the contract signed, it clearly said in the contract that they were going to provide clear title. Meaning whatever was wrong with the title, if there was judgments, liens, this, that, and the other, They were going to clear all that up before I bought the property. Well, lo and behold, right before closing, when they did the final title search, they found an encumbrance that was going to cost about $10,000 to fix. So brought that up to the asset manager. Well, the real estate agent representing the bank did. Said, hey, the buyer just found a $10,000 encumbrance, and he wants to either reduce the cost of the property or for y'all to fix it. And you know what the bank said? No. And I said, what? So of course, I thought I was a little confused. I said, well, no, they agreed to in the paperwork that they would clear the title. And the agent representing the bank said, well, they don't care. In fact, they said either you buy the property or hit the road. And I said, well, how about you go back to them and let them know that I may just have to get an attorney involved, because they've clearly stated in the contract that that's what they're going to do. And so she did. She comes back to me. She said, you know what? Basically said something along the lines of, they've got a lot more money than you do, Phil, for legal expenses, so go ahead and good luck. File a lawsuit. What bullies. So what ended up happening on that deal was the real estate agent took the commission cut. She basically lost all her commission, took a $10,000 hit in order to get the deal done, which that obviously wasn't right for her. But I mean, those banks were stingy. So the first reason why an investor should probably avoid foreclosures is that banks are stingy, hard to negotiate with, a lot easier to work with a standard, normal, rational seller. Number two, and this is a big one, competition. There's so much competition for foreclosures. You've got retail buyers, which I told you, it's a good idea for them to buy. You got these people you're competing against if you're an investor, and they're usually going to pay more than you would pay. So that's already challenging, but also it's on the MLS in most cases, and so every other investor knows about the foreclosure. You have a lot of competition, and the more competition you have, the higher the price is, right? So this right here is a huge problem. These people are competing against you, and then other investors are. And so competition makes it very, very difficult to get a great deal. In fact, right now, some of the banks have actually reduced their inventory, and what they've done is they've pulled foreclosures off the market purposely to artificially create a spike in demand or a reduce in supply, and it's crazy. So right now, investors are offering more than list price on foreclosures. It's insane. Now that may change here shortly, but right now it's just bonkers. It's impossible to find a good deal, basically. Now, I say that. There's a caveat to that. There are a couple of foreclosure niches that you can actually get into the deal where there's no competition. They're few far in between, but they do exist, okay? So in the blog post I have on this particular subject, I give a link to a training where the money's at in foreclosures, because there are some little niches where you can do foreclosures that have no competition, but it's not big. You may do like 1 to 2 of those deals a year. It's not like a huge money maker. Okay, so number one, you have the problem of they're stingy. Number two, you got the problem that there's a lot of competition. And other than that, it's just the fact that when you're dealing with a bank, you're dealing with an organization that requires you to do a traditional deal. And that's just not fun. Meaning, you have to bring earnest money, you have to go get a loan and a down payment, and you have to pre-qualify, and on and on and on and on. It's this traditional chocolate and vanilla investing. Ugh, it just kind of irks me, because there's no flexibility. You can't do any of the creative, out-of-the-box, no money down kind of transactions. You gotta do it the straight and ordinary way, and that produces a lot of risk. You have the risk of your earnest money. You have the risk of getting a down payment. That's your real money. And so foreclosures don't provide you any of this creative flexibility. And these, if you want to do a wholesale, or you want to do a creative transaction where you took the property over, where you didn't have to use any of your own money. It doesn't work that way in foreclosures. And some of you may disagree and say you can wholesale a foreclosure. I got to tell you, that is incredibly difficult. And it is so easy for that kind of deal to fall apart that it's almost not even worth talking about. So the other issue for investors with foreclosures is you got no flexibility. You are just constrained, to this one little box. Oh, drives me nuts. All right, so that pretty much concludes Is buying a foreclosure a good idea? If you're looking to move into the property, good idea. If you're an investor, bad idea. In fact, I live in a foreclosure, so I practice what I preach. I got a great deal on a foreclosure. So it can be of great value for looking to move in, but investors, there is much greener pastures out there than to mess around foreclosures. All right, thanks so much for being on this video. I'm Phil Pustiowski. Learn more about what we're doing at freedommentor.com, and happy investing.